Seriously, you millennials, Gen Z, you complain way too much. Just kidding. That's not true. Well, maybe it is true. I don't know. It depends on who you ask. But I will say that the boomers definitely had it easier buying a house. And by my math, at least twice as easy. So we're going to address that and explain it right now. If you like this content and you want to see more of it, please like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and share with your friends. That's going to help us be able to continue to put this kind of content out. Okay, let's get to it. So it's a common conversation right now where millennials and Gen Zers are talking about how hard it is to buy a house, and things are more expensive, and jobs are not paying as much, and it's harder to even get jobs. And there's an article that we're going to discuss here that's going to address kind of the surface area of that, and then we are going to dive a little bit deeper into the numbers. And I'm a little bit older, not much, than a lot of the millennials. And I was told that you just go to university, get a degree, you can write your own ticket, right? And I was like, man, I almost got that degree. I'm going to get that job making $80,000 a year, which back in that time was even a little bit more than it is right now. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to be wealthy, whatever. And I know a few people knew what was coming, and I figured it out pretty quick. That is not at all how it works. I just want to take, it's not easy to get that high paying job. I mean, maybe if you were like, I don't know, in a fraternity and you made relationships, or you come from a certain kind of family that can give you that kind of job, you have that uncle that loves you more than the other nephews and nieces and hooks you up. But other than that, getting a job that's going to allow you to buy a house, even at that time, wasn't that easy. And especially because that was also not too far from when the great financial crisis happened. So you had homes spiraling out of control in price. And then of course you had it where nobody could buy a home because everybody was losing their jobs. We're going to get into the details of what that was like at that time. But that was an insane time. Now you got the Gen Z millennial, and statistically, they are not able to get into houses as easily as the boomers. So let's look at this article from CNN Business entitled, "Boomers Won't Part with Their Homes, and That's a Problem for Young Families." One of the things that they talk about is boomers are staying in their homes for longer, right? And Gen Z adults have it even harder than millennials by the numbers. So it says here that as a result, empty nest baby boomers own 28% of large homes, millennials with kids just 14%, according to Referral analysis, and that was released on Tuesday, which this article was written in 2024. It's just 2 days ago. This is brand new data, and Gen Z families own just 0.3% of homes with 3 bedrooms or more. And one of the problems is there are not a lot of small homes out there. You kind of almost have to go into condos anymore these days, or just do like a lot of people and rent. It is not easy. I rented rooms for years because I couldn't afford a home. So this does go a little bit further into what's going on. Let's just read from the article. Boomers love their homes. Even if they did not want to sell, it is now prohibitively expensive for many millennials, says Shahryar Bokhari, I hope I said that properly, senior economist at Redfin, who did the analysis. These are larger homes where there are only 1 or 2 people living there, and typically they bought it a while ago, so it has value. And this is a change from the historical norm according to the research. 10 years ago, young families were just as likely as empty nesters to own large homes. And it goes into what defines each one of these age groups. Adult Gen Zers were 19 to 25 years old right now, or as of 2 days ago. Millennials are 26 to 41, Gen Xers are 42 to 57, and baby boomers are 58 to 76. Okay, so even though millennials with kids own half as many large homes as empty nesters, millennials make up roughly 28% of the country's adult population, the largest share of 80 generation. Okay, so the lock-in effect. This talks about how interest rates are a lot higher now. So not only is it harder to get a loan because a 7 or 8% mortgage is going to have a payment that might be 50% higher. So a $4,000 mortgage is now a $6,500 mortgage for the same size loan. On top of that, people who own homes don't want to sell, especially if they don't own it outright, because now they're going from a 2 or 3% loan to a 6% loan and experiencing the same problem, spending a lot more money per month for the same value. That's going to put a stop to people selling their homes unless they own it outright and they're doing cash deals. There's also some sociological aspects. Boomers love their homes. That's just how it is. They love to stick in their homes, but they have a silver lining saying that there might be a little bit of an ease in rates in 2024, and it might be easier to buy a home. However, there's an idea of a silver tsunami of older homeowners selling their homes en masse to try to downsize, and they're saying by the research that that's not going to be a tsunami. It'll be just a small amount of homes hitting the market. So we're not going to hold our breath on that one. I'm going to move into some data here. There is a chart here. It's a little fuzzy, but it's, from the Fed. And basically we're looking at the median sales price of houses sold for the United States. And you can see, of course, those prices are rising, but wages are rising too. So what's the problem, right? We actually have some pretty good data here. And this is a chart. I tried to zoom this in. And unfortunately it does not let me zoom it in. I'll have to describe some of this to you, but it's the home price to median household income ratio. So this has to do with the average income to the home price. And if you look at the numbers on the right, it's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and those are the amount of years of income it takes to pay off a house. So it's talking about how, say back in the early 60s through the late 90s, and kind of excluding a little bit of the mid 90s, but pretty much through that time, that 30-year period or 25-year period, it cost maybe 4.5, 3.5 times an average annual income to pay off a house. Well, guess when the boomers were all buying? It was during that time, especially prior to 1990. So they had the cheapest payoff of a home, like in history, that we have on record, at least per this chart. You can go back a little farther and it goes more expensive, kind of going back to the war and the depression, but the boomers had it as easy as possible. It only took them maybe 3.5 to 4.5 years of their income to pay off a home. Of course, it doesn't work that way. You have a 30-year mortgage, you're buying other things besides a house, right? Not all your money goes towards your house, but it's a metric. And then as we move forward, the worst time in recent history besides now was right at the Great Financial Crisis, because rates were down to zero and there was the mortgage-backed security situation and home values skyrocketed. And towards the end of that, it was about 7 years worth of income to pay off a house. And then after that, we had the crash. Now, it was hard to buy a home during this time. In that kind of 2012 bottom out, one of the issues was that most of the homes that were selling were foreclosures. Everybody else was just trying to hold on to their home for the most part. You had a few outliers, but for the most part, that's how it was. And homes that hit the market, or let's just say homes that would have hit the market, would not hit the market because banks would not sell for the most part. And part of the reason is they didn't want such low prices to hit the market, because then all the homes around would get valued based on those super low prices because of the way the comps work. But once this kind of cleared out, there was a time then when people could start to buy homes again. And even during that time when it was bottomed out, you couldn't get a loan. It was very, very difficult to get a loan. Even if you had cash, it was difficult to find a house. There was no inventory at that time. Eventually things evened out, but now we're at the highest point in the history of this chart as far as how many years of your income it takes to pay off a house. We're past 7 and approaching 8. It's actually 7.56 is the end of this chart. So it's about twice as many years of medium income now for a Gen Z or millennial, or a Gen Xer for that matter, to pay off a house as it did when the boomers were all buying. So when you extrapolate that into a 30-year mortgage, it's either going to end up being twice as expensive on the mortgage, or you're going to be paying it off for twice as long. I mean, this kind of simple math, it's not necessarily that simple, but it's kind of that simple. Like, it's twice as hard to get a home, twice as expensive to pay for that home, and mortgages generally are 30 years. So those payments, even though the rates are super low, the prices of the homes are going up, and the income is not increasing to match the price of that home. And that's why you see this huge increase right here. Even though the rates are historically pretty low, they're not down to zero like they were a few years ago. So there's another piece of this puzzle as to why it is harder now for younger people to buy a home. And it has to do with purchasing power. And this chart, I have yellow lines at the beginning and the end of when boomers were buying homes, early 60s to the late 80s. And you can see purchasing power is decreasing at that time. Purchasing power right now, according to this chart, the metric, which we're not going to go into the details of, is sitting at 32.6. At the beginning of when boomers were buying houses, purchasing power was sitting 10 times as high as it is right now, almost exactly. At the end of when boomers were buying houses, it was 3 times as high. So your money went 3 times as far. Think of it this way. When you buy a house, paying a mortgage, what else are you buying? You're paying a car payment, paying insurance, paying gas bill, you're paying food. All those things right now cost 3 times as much as they did at the end of the boomer time, and 10 times as much as they did at the beginning of the boomer home buying time. So not only does it take twice as long for somebody's income to pay off a house compared to when the boomers are buying houses, but things cost 3 to 10 times as much on the periphery. So your food, your gas, your other things like that. So it's even harder to piece together the money to get that down payment. So everything is working against these young people, and it's not really a mystery as to why they're complaining and they're feeling that the boomers had it easy. Now let's take a look back here. One of the situations that occurred prior to the boomers was the silent generation, right? And the silent generation and the greatest generation and all those kind of war, pre-war depression type individuals, they had just as hard of a time or harder than what we're seeing right now. This cuts off 1948, which is the tail end of World War II, right after. So of course, we had a lot of changes in our system, and that's why things got so easy for the boomers. We're not going to get into that theory right now, but things were just as hard back then and people made it work. Now, do we want to live like people in depression, eating out of trash cans? I'm not saying that that's a good thing. I'm just saying that people adapt. And what we probably need to do is get rid of this idea that things are going to be as easy as it was for the boomers. And we do have two choices. We can complain or we can work harder. And I know that does not sound very nice, but that really is the answer. And one of the answers is having a side hustle. And if you come over to www.algofactory.tech, you'll be able to check out a side hustle. We actually help people learn how to develop their own trading method, their own algorithm. It takes a little time and it takes some work. It's simple, it's not easy, right? Because it takes a lot of dedication, but you can start to bring in your own money besides what you're working for. You can increase your income. It's kind of like going to a class. Now, moving forward, one of the places that people can get into real estate without actually having to buy a home is into REITs, real estate investment trusts. Now, again, nothing we say here is investment advice, but I'm over here at seekingalpha.com and I got a list of a few REITs that are pretty good. And seekingalpha.com is great. You can see that it gives you a buy rating, a strong sell rating, hold, it just gives you some ideas of their opinion as to whether or not you should buy, hold, or sell a real estate investment trust. Now, what is a real estate investment trust? It is a company that owns real estate, and then you own basically stock in that company, right? So you can get into real estate, but let's just say you cannot afford this $400,000, $500,000 starter home. It's just the fact that a starter home costs that much is ridiculous. It depends where you live. The point here, though, is that you can start off with very little money, and you can get into the real estate market if that's the market that you like, and you can take advantage of it. Now, of course, it's not going to be the same as owning a rental home, and of course, you can get the appreciation of the home, and you can rent that out, and you can grab that money as well. It's not quite the same, but this allows people with smaller amounts of money to experience the gains and losses in real estate. Let's take a look at Kimco Realty Corporation. Just take a quick look at the stock here. Okay, so I've got Kimco pulled up here, and it's on the daily chart. So what happened with this chart back in 2020 is what happened with everything, is there was a big dump in the price. And so I look at the 2020 COVID crash, is what that was, as kind of a baseline for where I might be interested in buying a stock. It might not ever get down there. That's a problem. So one thing that I might consider doing is looking at some areas that I might want to purchase where it might go up in the future. And I'm going to use market structure. So the way that markets work is they will move at pivot points. So you have these two pivot points right here where price came up, tried to get past a certain area, and then got shoved down. Now, when that happened, we have what are called pivot points, and I can't seem to find my shapes here. So here are two pivot points right there. Now, if we draw a line across those, we're going to see that there is another pivot point in the future, which is back in October of 2023, where price rallied up from that same exact price. So price came down to that same exact price, which was about $16 per share, and then it rallied back up, and it was a strong move up. So there's a decent chance that if there is not a large contraction in the wider market, if real estate doesn't have a bad year, then price may find a spot to go up. And looking at some of the market structure, I can tell you that I'm interested in about $19. I'm interested in about $17. And if price goes below that area, then of course I would be interested in these lower numbers that are relative to the COVID crash. I'd start marking out structure there. But if I really thought that this stock was going to go up, I think it's going to go sideways for a little while. But the areas I'd be interested in what's called averaging in, like buying pieces of it on the way down, are going to be these structural areas where price bounced. So $19, $17, $16.50, I'd say $17.50, $16.50, and about $13.80. Those are interesting numbers for the real estate investment trust. Now understand that if the wider market has some kind of a problem, like a big contraction, and real estate has a contraction, then there's a really good chance that price could continue back down further, and perhaps these levels are not very interesting at that time. So as price does hit these levels, I would be looking at the rest of the market, I'd be looking at what's happening with the market, and I would make a decision at that time, because that is anywhere from days to months out. So I certainly would be not simply just buying because it hit a number. I'd be looking at the wider market. Okay, well, I hope this helps. Again, if you like this content, please like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, share with your friends, come over to Algo Factory, see if we can help you upgrade your life and trade your job. All right, hope you enjoyed the show. Please like, subscribe, hit that notification bell. On the screen there, you can see our website, algofactory.tech. Tap that QR code to take you straight there. I'm also very active on X. That's algo_factory777. We got TikTok and Rumble. In the meantime, we hope to see you over at the website. Come on over, trade your job, upgrade your life. We'll see you there.